Hello everyone, Jagadas here. Are you struggling to climb as an ADC? This is the guide for you, where I cover all the things that usual guides don't tell you that you can do to do better. So let's start by going through what every single rune does. The most important thing about runes is down here. Those are raw stats that you can use to gain an advantage. In the first row, you can pick Adaptive Force, which translates into 5.4 attack damage, which means you get around 8% more damage at level 1, since most ADCs tend to hover around 60 to 70 AD. Do note that this particular rune gets worse and worse as the game progresses. Pick this if you want an early game lead, or you play a non-hyper carry ADC. That means something like Jhin or Misfortune. Next one is attack speed. You get 10%, it scales pretty well into the late game, but you won't notice a big difference early game. Next one is 8 ability haste. Just like the Adaptive Force, this does fall off late game. However, if you're an ability focused champion, this is great to go for. If you're playing something like Ashe or Tristana, it allows you to poke more, it allows you to jump in more, it's just overall pretty decent. I'm going to skip the second row here real quick. We'll get back to it, don't worry. It's just to make it easy to understand the idea I'm bringing to you. If you're going against double physical bot lane, which is common low ELO with Pyke, Senna and Pantheon dominating down there, you can change the third row for armor to get another, and this is just an estimation, 5% survivability against 2 people, which means more than the little sliver of health you could get instead. Of course, it's the same concept if you find yourself against a double magic damage bot lane. A lot less common, but it could happen, in which case you could go with magic resist. So let's get back to the second row, which I skipped just before. The idea is, you can get another 5.4 attack damage, or armor, or magic resist, after you decided on the third row in the game. Also, now you can consider the rest of the enemy team. If they are 4 physical damage or more, or they are 4 magical damage or more, you would want to take armor or magic resist here respectively. Remember, surviving X% longer means you get to do your damage X% longer. Now that we're done with that part, let's get into the actual runes. We're starting with the precision options, but don't worry, I'll go through every logical type of rune for the role. Press the attack is the first one here. So, the benefit of this keystone is that when you activate it on an opponent, you are increasing your entire team's damage to that one person by 8 to 12% for 6 seconds. Also, you do a little extra damage on the third hit. That is plenty of time to get a pick. You can kill a person, an opponent, who is alone, get rid of them super quick. This rune works even better if you're pre-made with your support, because you have better synergy in the way you play. I would personally pick this if your champion is capable of activating it consistently. That means you have to hit 3 times with an auto attack, often, or on demand. The champions who are able to do this consistently is Vayne and Ashe. It also works okay if your character has any kind of attack speed steroid. The second keystone is Lethal Tempo. Now this one is my favorite, but it is also a little tricky. You won't see big benefits at first, but the more you practice using it, the better you will get at using it. It gives you a huge 40 to 110% attack speed for 6 seconds. If you damaged an opponent 1.5 seconds ago. This basically works really well for hyper carries that has poke in their kit. Vayne, Kog'Maw and Kai'Sa can use it because of their insane scaling with attack speed. The best users of this keystone, however, are Ashe, Jinx and Xayah. Jinx can activate the 1.5 second duration before it activates with her rockets on attack, and Ashe can with her W. Xayah can also easily proc it with her Q and her E. The third option is Fleet Footwork. After moving and attacking enough, you will get an empowered attack that will boost your movement speed and heal you a bit. You basically only want to use this though if you're trolling as a melee ADC, where you need to sustain a movement to even get close enough and not get poked out of lane. So basically, if you're Yasuo, you're an ADC, but I would not recommend picking them. The fourth option is Conqueror. As of this video being made, the only ADC who really likes to use this rune is Samira. Every attack or ability you hit with will give you a stacking bonus of 2 to 5 adaptive force. That means 1.2 to 3 attack damage for each stacks. It stacks up to 12 for a maximum of 14.4 to 36 attack damage. Once you hit 12 stacks, you will also heal for 6% Omnivamp. But yeah, only pick this on Samira usually. Time for the second row. Overheal gives you a shield whenever you're healed above full health, effectively increasing your maximum health for great survivability. This is particularly great if you're lifesteal a lot, or if you have a support that heals you. That means Sona, Soraka, Yumi, or Nami. Triumph is what you'll see most guides tell you to buy, because they don't care to go into the same details as I do. It's just easy to tell people, hey, get Triumph, it works. However, Triumph is generally good, but its versatility causes it to lose out in a lot of raw power compared to the other options I will provide. Presence of Mind grants you 1.2 to 8.8 mana regeneration for 4 seconds after damaging an enemy champion. It is good for any ADC who likes to poke with abilities or spends a lot of mana. Examples being Ashe, Sivir, Saya, Varus, or Ezreal. This one is simple. Do you like attack speed, tenacity, or lifesteal? Go with attack speed in most situations, but go with lifesteal if you don't intend to buy lifesteal through items. Tenacity has a nice niche that even an ADC can use, if you spot the enemy having a lot of crowd control. For the fourth row, you can go with Coup de Grace, which allows you to do 8% more damage to enemies who are below 40% health. This one is pretty decent overall. You could also go with Cut Down. This one boosts your damage by 5 to 15% on targets who have more max health than you. Starting at 10%, that essentially means you will do more damage to the enemy jungler, top laner, and support throughout most of the game. You can also consider this to be an anti-tank option. Last Stand is unfortunately not viable on any ADC. Now, we have to choose between Domination, Sorcery, Resolve, or Inspiration. I will go through all of them for you, do not worry. Let's start with Domination. On the first row, we can pick Cheap Shot, which allows you to do 10 to 45 extra true damage to enemies who have recently been hit with a crowd control ability. If you have a support that has a low cooldown stun, such as Leona, this is a very viable option. Next is Taste of Blood. It heals you for a minimum of 18 every 20 seconds when you damage an enemy. Sustain in lane is never a bad thing, but it loses a bit of value if you have a healing support. Sudden Impact gives you a slight damage increase after you use a dash, leap, blink, or teleport. Samira could make use of this, but most ADCs won't care about it at all. It would also be pretty decent on Ezreal if not for the much better options available. On the third row in Domination, we can basically choose another stat increase to increase throughout the game. Ravenous Hunter for Omnivamp. This is the one you'll be using mostly when picking Domination as your secondary. Ingenious Hunter for Item Haste. Honestly, don't touch this one. Relentless Hunter for movement speed out of combat. This one has a nice niche for controlling the map at max stacks. At max stacks, it actually gives you 53 movement speed out of combat, allowing you to move around the map faster. If you like split pushing as an ADC, I'm looking at you, Tristana, pick this up. Ultimate Hunter for ability haste on your ultimate. Pick this one if a lot of your champion's power is on the ult, such as Misfortune. I would recommend this on Ashe, but we will get to the best one for her in the inspiration tree later. Let's move on to the sorcery. We have a very specific and special choice in the first row, and I want you to pay good attention to this one. Nullifying Orb. It gives you a magic damage shield for 40 to 120 the instant you're hit by any magic damage that would drop you under a third of your health. It further scales with your attack damage. Pick this one up every time you find yourself being against a team with 4 magic damage dealers or more. Combine it with magic resist for a bigger boost. The second option is Mana Flow Band. Every time you hit an opponent with an ability, you gain 25 maximum mana. At 250, that means after you have stacked it 12 times, it stops giving you maximum mana and instead gives you 1% of your missing mana as mana regeneration every 5 seconds. Do you ever play Sivir or Misfortune and find yourself running out of mana despite having presence of mind? If yes, pick up this one for big boy mana boost. On the second row, you can pick up Transcendence for 5 ability haste at level 5, another 5 at level 8, and then a special effect of 30% cooldown reduction on non-ultimate abilities every time you get a kill or assist, once you hit level 11 or above. I would pick this up on heavy ability focused champions, meaning it's basically Ezreal's wet dream. Celerity increases movement speed bonuses and gives you 1% movement speed. Sadly, this one is not very good compared to the other options, but feel free to try it out if you want. Absolute Focus is decent all-around option, giving you 1.8 to 18 attack damage based on level when you are above 70% health. If you have a healing support, this rune has a lot more value, since you will basically be above the threshold the entire time. On the third row, you can pick up Scorch if you already picked Mana Flow Band to further buff your poke abilities to 15 to 35 damage every 10 seconds. You may pick Water Walking, but I would not usually recommend it. It boosts your attack damage by 1.8 to 18 based on level and gives you 25 movement speed in the river. If you are very focused on dragons as an objective, this one could be useful to you. Last one in the sorcery tree is Gathering Storm. This gives you more AD the more time passes in the game. If the game lasts 70 minutes, the rune gives you the equivalent of 3 BF swords. That's 120 AD. I usually recommend this for people who are in doubt about which other one to take, since it is really hard to predict how long a game is going to last, and thusly, you can't predict the exact value. Okay, so you may think that Resolve is garbage for ADCs, because, oh, I'm a carry, I need to do damage. However, I would like for you to at least hear me out. I'm not saying Resolve is the best. The purpose of this video is to educate you so you can make a decision yourself. But Resolve actually has some nice stuff in it. Demolish is very gimmicky. It charges up a powerful attack over 3 seconds when you are near a tower, then you may unleash it for a nice chunk of damage on said tower. It scales with max health and you're an ADC, so the damage is pretty small, but it could lead to some pretty fun early tower kills. Font of Life is bad, but you could perhaps make it work with Ashe. I'm not going into detail with this one, sorry, it is just so poor. Shield Bash increases your armor and magic resist by 1 to 10 when you have a shield on you, and boosts a single auto attack by a small amount scaling with bonus health and shield amount every time you get a shield. Not the best, however there are rare cases where you could find use in this, but they are so far-fetched and I won't really spend time debating it here. On the second row we have Conditioning. A recurring concept here is that, unfortunately, in Resolve it is bad for ADCs, but not all of them. But after 12 minutes you get 9 armor and magic resist. Also it will boost those stats by another 5%. So if you have 100 of each magic resist and armor, which you may have as an ADC sometimes late game, you could boost it to 114 for an overall increase of 14, which honestly isn't that much. Here is the first real selling point of Resolve, and I want you to pay attention here. I really hope you did not skip this part. How do you feel about double poke lanes? Do you like the enemy Ashe and Brand hitting you constantly? Or do you feel helpless? Second Wind does a lot for your ability to do anything you want in lane in these situations. Whenever you take damage from an enemy, you will heal for 4% of your missing health plus 6 over 10 seconds. And if the one who hit you is Brand, the damage over time will actually extend the healing. So at level 1 you can almost walk into Brand's W just to piss him off. Next up is Bone Plating. Sadly, it's garbage for ADCs. The third row starts with Overgrowth. So late game, at level 18, most ADCs have close to 2000 health. For every 8 minions that die near you, you gain 3 maximum health. It keeps going on forever, so at level 18, you would have over 200 minions die near you, giving you at least 75 extra health. Then the Keystone actually boosts your health by 3.5% off your maximum health after 120 minions. That is roughly a total increase of 7.5% to your health and survivability. And remember, surviving X% longer means you get to do your damage X% longer. It is not the best choice necessarily, but now you're at least able to know when it's worth considering. Second is Revitalize. It boosts your healing and shielding by 5%. Not really that important, but it does boost your lifesteal by 5%. It does not give you 5% lifesteal. It is not quite the same thing. If you already have lifesteal, that lifesteal will be 5% better. So if you have 10% lifesteal from an item or your runes, that will be increased to 10.5% lifesteal. Very small buff, but it is a buff nonetheless. But the real benefit comes when you have the other part. Your healing is increased by 10% when you're under 40% health. And here's the real kicker. Other people's heals on you are also increased by 10%. So if you have a Yuumi stuck on you who heals a lot and is in no danger herself, you're effectively gaining 10% more extra healing, which is useful the entire game. Insane value if you have a Yuumi. Lastly is Inspiration, and this one is a bit weird, just as Riot intended. The first option is Hextech Flash Traption. When you use your flash, you gain access to Hex Flash until you get your normal flash back. Hex Flash is basically flash but with a 2-second cost time. It is not very useful for ADCs though, so I would not recommend you pick it up, but at least you know what it does now. Second is Magical Footwear. So at 12 minutes, decreasing by 45 seconds every time you get a kill or assist, you will get a pair of free boots with 10 extra movement speed on them. This is not bad. You save 300 gold on boots and you get a little bit extra with it. But at the same time, it prevents you from buying boots at all until you hit the timing for these. It is exactly as rewarding as it is risky. Perfect Timing is the same concept except with a free stopwatch. I really would not recommend this since there are so many better options, but it may be able to catch your opponents off guard, so by all means go for it. Second row has the most interesting rune to me. Future Market. You can purchase items beyond what you can afford. It doesn't start until 2 minutes, and going beyond your normal gold amount costs 50 extra gold. It's kinda bad, but if you're low ELO and have a hard time affording certain items at certain points of the game, I suppose this could be useful to you. Next up is Minion Dematerializer. Don't take it for the love of God, it causes bad habits and makes you worse at CSing because you rely on this. Biscuit Delivery. This one is a bit odd for ADCs. While it's not exactly bad at all, and it gives you a lot of sustain by granting you a biscuit every 2 minutes, 3 times total, allowing you to regain 10% of your mana and health each time you use one. It also boosts your maximum mana by 50. It is not bad by any means, but the bot lane is kinda hit or miss a lot of the time, so I really think it's rarely a good choice. Cosmic Insight is not bad, except it is, for ADCs at least. It gives you 18 Summoner Spell Haste and 10 Item Haste. You won't benefit from the Item Haste at all, and the Summoner Spell Haste is very poor value compared to the other options. Do you remember when I told you we'd get to Ashe? Now is the time. With Approach Velocity, you move 7.5% faster towards slowed enemies. This is increased to 15% if you are the one slowing them. Can you mention an ADC that slows the enemy consistently? Yeah, you got it, Ashe. So, this rune gives Ashe a permanent option to all in, poke, or disengage almost entirely when and how she wants. It is undisputably the best rune for Ashe. Now that I have paid Ashe my respects though, I have to say, while it is not bad on other ADCs if you have a support that slows a lot, it is only 7.5% in those cases. But of course, not all ADCs want to go with precision, so let's have a look at what we could do if we go with Domination Keystones or Resolve Keystones. Let's begin with Domination. Electrocute for an ADC is very similar to Press the Attack, except it counts for abilities. So, it could have worth on Jhin or Misfortune, where you auto-attack, use an ability, and auto-attack again, for a nice 30 or more boost to the third attack. Predator is conceptually a bit silly for an ADC. When you have your boots, they gain an ability that boosts movement speed gradually, all the way up to 45%, and then gives you a very nice 40 or more damage buff on your next attack. I guess you could take this if you feel very ballsy and very confident, but if you're playing ranked, I would probably stay a little bit away from this one. Dark Harvest is likely the keystone you wanted when you decided to go with Domination. Hitting an opponent under 50% health will deal 20 to 60 damage, scaling with your AD, and increasing the next trigger of Dark Harvest by 5. This is a nice way to attempt mending the late game of early game ADCs. Jhin and Misfortune in particular like it. Ezreal could also make use of it to a great degree, but that's just because there's no particular keystone that really works for Ezreal. So, you picked Tristana and you're not quite good enough yet to make use of lethal tempo. I present to you Hail of Blights. 110% attack speed for your first 3 attacks against the enemy every 8 seconds is a big deal. It being limited to 3 attacks though means that it gets worse and worse the more attack speed you get. While it is nowhere near as good as lethal tempo late game, it can lead to some pretty decent domination, pun intended, in lane with the sheer raw stats it provides. But again, it comes at a price late game. Follow the runes after according to what you have seen earlier in the video. Okay, so here's the last part. So, for ADCs, Resolve has this tiny little gimmick as a keystone. Firstly, Aftershock and Guardian are bad. Don't take them. I'll talk about Grasp of the Undying. If you have a nice range and are afraid of assassins late game, imagine the enemy mid laner is a Zed. Take this at once. Every 4 seconds you get to do a nice little damage bonus of 1.6% of your maximum health. That means around 4 at level 1. Scaling better and better the more you stack it. It's around 48 late game at level 18, even as the lowest of lowballing. It also heals you for 0.8% of your maximum health when you trigger it, and it gives you extra health scaling. For every time you trigger it, you get 2 extra maximum health. That means that in the best case scenario, in a 30-minute game, if somehow absolutely everything goes perfectly, you get to attack every 4 seconds. There is 1,800 seconds in a 30-minute game. 1,800 divided by 4 is 450. So you get to trigger it 450 times, getting 2 health every time. So you got almost 1,000 health from this. That is increasing your health by roughly 33%. But it's just a gimmick in the end. You can consider it if you want. In the end, all I care about is that I made you smarter so that you can make the right decisions. I'm not here to make the decisions for you. Of course, after that, you just follow the explanations I gave you earlier to fulfill your runes. However guys, that's the end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Please tell me in the comments, which part of the video did you find the most useful? Was it the details about precision? Was it that Resolve can actually be used? Was it the armor or the magic resist at the bottom right runes? Was it the nullifying orb? Please tell me what helped you. And thank you again guys for watching. I hope you have a nice day. Farewell.